A girl steps out of a carriage. She is 14 years old. Guards surround her. They tell her to take off her clothes, every piece, even her shoes, even her underwear. Nothing from Austria can cross this border, not one thread. She stands there naked in the cold morning air on a small island between two countries. Then they dress her again in French clothes for a French future. This is Marie Antoinette. 23 years later, the same woman sits in a wooden cart. Her hands are tied behind her back. Crowds scream at her. They throw insults, they throw hate. The cart moves toward a machine built to cut off her head. How does a 14-year-old girl become the most hated woman in Europe? And how does a queen lose her head just for being who she was born to be? To answer that, you have to go back to the beginning. She was born into a role. She never got to choose her own story. The year is 1755. The place is Vienna, Austria. A baby girl is born into the most powerful family in Europe. Her mother is Maria Theresa, Empress of Austria, a strong woman, a ruler with real power. The baby's name is Maria Antonia. Later, the world will know her as Marie Antoinette. She is the youngest daughter, one of 16 children. In this family, children are not just children. They are tools, tools for alliances, tools for peace treaties, tools for power. From a young age, Maria Antonia learns one lesson clearly. Marriage is not about love, marriage is about politics. Austria and France have been enemies for centuries. Now they want peace, and peace needs a symbol, a human symbol, a marriage between two royal families. At age 14, Maria Antonia is chosen. She will marry the future king of France. His name is Louis Auguste. He will one day become King Louis XVI. She has never met him, not once, not even a letter. But her fate is already decided. In April 1770, she leaves Vienna forever. She will never see her mother again. Not in person, only in letters. The journey to France takes weeks. It crosses forests, rivers, and small towns. Finally, she reaches a special island on the Rhine River, the border between Austria and France. Here something strange happens, a ceremony, a ritual of transformation. She must remove everything Austrian. Her clothes, her jewelry, even her small dog. Nothing from her old life can cross into France, nothing at all. She stands there, a child stripped of everything familiar. Then French ladies dress her in new clothes. French clothes for a French princess. In that moment, Maria Antonia disappears. Marie Antoinette is born. She is not just a girl anymore. She is a political gift wrapped in silk. She crosses the border. She never looks back. A stranger became her husband. The wedding happens at the Palace of Versailles. It is massive. It is loud. It is public. Thousands of guests watch. Fireworks light up the sky, but behind the celebration there is a quiet problem, a very private problem. Louis Auguste, her new husband, is shy, extremely shy. He is 16 years old. He loves locks and hunting more than people. On their wedding night, nothing happens between them, nothing at all. The whole court knows this. In Versailles, privacy does not exist. Servants watch the royal bed. They report every detail to the king. Days turn into weeks. Weeks turn into months. Still nothing changes. Marie Antoinette is now the center of a very public, very embarrassing waiting game. Everyone expects a child, a future king, an heir to the throne, but the marriage remains unfinished. Empty, silent, her mother writes worried letters from Vienna. Has anything happened yet? Marie Antoinette must answer these questions. Again and again, she feels the pressure every single day. In French court life, she is always watched, always judged, never alone. She wakes up in public. She eats in public. She dresses in public. Nobles stand around her bed each morning just to watch her get dressed. There is no private moment, not one. 7 years pass before the marriage is finally, truly complete. 7 years of rumors, 7 years of jokes, 7 years of shame. By then, people already have opinions about her. Strong opinions. Some say she is cold. Some say she controls her husband. Some say worse things. None of this is really true. But truth rarely matters in Versailles. What matters is the story people choose to believe. And the story about Marie Antoinette is already turning dark. The people started to talk. In 1774, King Louis XV dies. Suddenly, Louis Auguste becomes King Louis XVI, and Marie Antoinette becomes Queen of France. She is only 19 years old. Neither of them wanted this. Neither of them was ready. Louis XVI prefers locks and maps to politics and power. Marie Antoinette, meanwhile, searches for joy in a life she never chose. She finds it in fashion, in parties, in extravagant style. Her hairstyles become famous across Europe. Some are almost 1 meter tall. They include ships, gardens, even small birds built into the hair itself. Her dresses cost fortunes. Her jewelry costs even more. She gambles at cards, often late into the night, often losing large sums. To escape the strict rules of the royal court, she builds her own private world. It is called the Petit Trianon, a small palace just for her. There she wears simple dresses. She plays in gardens. She pretends to be a normal woman, but France is not doing well, not well at all. The country is deeply in debt. Wars have cost enormous amounts of money. Regular people struggle to buy bread, prices keep rising, hunger spreads, and while they suffer, stories about the Queen's spending spread even faster. People start calling her Madame Déficit, the Queen of Debt. Every new dress becomes a symbol. Every party becomes a scandal. It does not matter that the king's ministers, not the Queen, control the treasury. It does not matter that many stories are exaggerated, even invented. The public image is already forming. Cold, foreign, wasteful, an image that will follow her for the rest of her life. Then a lie was born. There is a phrase people still remember today. Let them eat cake. Many people believe Marie Antoinette said this about starving peasants. They believe she heard the people had no bread and she said coldly, let them eat cake. But here is the truth. There is no real proof she ever said this. No letter, no official record, no trusted witness. Historians have searched for years. They found nothing solid. The phrase appears in a book written years before she even arrived in France. So how did this lie become so powerful? Because it fit the story people already wanted to believe. They wanted a villain, a symbol of everything wrong with the monarchy, a foreign queen, rich and careless, ignoring the suffering of her own people. Marie Antoinette became that symbol whether it was fair or not. And once a story like that starts, it is almost impossible to stop. People repeat it, they believe it, they pass it on to their children. Meanwhile, the real problems in France keep growing. Growing fast, the country's debt is enormous. Wars in America and Europe cost too much money. Farmers face bad harvests. Bread prices rise higher and higher. In some years, a poor family spends almost all their income just on bread. Anger builds in the streets. Anger builds in the markets. Anger builds everywhere, and who do people blame? Not just the king. Also the queen, the foreign queen from a hated enemy country, the queen who loves luxury. The queen who supposedly said, "Let them eat cake." She becomes the perfect target. Simple, clear, easy to hate, but the story is far from finished. Soon something real happens, something that will hurt her reputation even more than any rumor. Then came the necklace. The year is 1785. A shocking scandal begins. Today people call it the affair of the diamond necklace. It starts with an extremely expensive piece of jewelry, a diamond necklace. The necklace is worth a fortune. Almost impossible to imagine such wealth. A group of clever criminals plans a dangerous trick. They target a cardinal, a powerful church leader named Louis de Rohan. The cardinal wants favor with the queen. He wants her trust, her respect. The criminals use this desire against him. They forge letters, fake letters written as if from Marie Antoinette herself. In these letters, the queen asks the cardinal to buy the necklace for her secretly. The cardinal believes it. He arranges the purchase. He even meets a woman in a garden at night dressed like the queen. But it is not the queen. It is an actress hired to fool him completely. The cardinal, fully convinced, arranges for the necklace to be delivered. The criminals take the necklace and disappear into the night. Soon the truth comes out, the whole plot is discovered. But here is the tragic part: the public does not blame only the criminals. They blame Marie Antoinette too, even though she is completely innocent. She never asked for the necklace, she never wrote those letters, she knew nothing. Still, her name is now permanently linked to greed, to deception, to scandal. Newspapers spread the story across France and beyond. People whisper, "See." This proves what kind of woman she really is. The damage is done. Her reputation, already weak, now collapses further. It does not matter that a court later finds her innocent. It does not matter that the real criminals face punishment. The image stays, cold, greedy, dishonest, an image built on lies but believed as truth by millions. And while this scandal spreads, France itself is falling apart. Bread is scarce. Taxes are unfair. The gap between rich and poor grows wider every year. People no longer just complain. They start to organize. They start to demand change. Something bigger than one scandal is coming, something historic. Then the people rose up. The year is 1789. France stands at the edge of something enormous, something the world has never seen before. On July 14th, a crowd in Paris attacks a prison. Its name is the Bastille. The Bastille is a symbol of royal power, of royal control. When it falls, the message is clear. The old system is breaking apart. News spreads across France like fire. The people are no longer afraid. They are angry, hungry, and ready to fight for change. In October of that same year, thousands of women march toward Versailles. They are furious about the price of bread. They demand answers. They demand action. The crowd reaches the palace gates. Chaos breaks out. The royal family has no real choice left. They must leave Versailles, their home for generations, and move to Paris. There they live inside the Tuileries Palace, but it does not feel like a palace anymore. It feels like a prison watched constantly by revolutionary guards. Marie Antoinette is now called Madame Déficit openly, without any shame. She is seen as an enemy of the people, a symbol of everything they hate. Her every move is questioned. Her every letter is suspected. Some revolutionaries believe she is secretly working with foreign enemies. They believe she wants Austria to invade France and crush the revolution. This fear, true or not, makes her even more dangerous in the public eye. Inside the palace walls, the family tries to hold onto some normal life. They eat together, they pray together. They wait, uncertain for what comes next. But outside, the streets grow louder, angrier, more radical. The monarchy that once seemed untouchable now looks fragile. Unbreakable, Marie Antoinette understands the danger. She feels it every single day. She begins to believe there is only one way to survive. They must escape. They must run. Then they tried to run. The date is June 1791. Marie Antoinette and her family make a dangerous plan, a secret escape. They want to reach Montmédy, a town near the border controlled by loyal troops. From there, they hope to gather support and return with strength. Late at night, the family sneaks out of the Tuileries Palace in disguise. The king wears simple clothes, pretending to be a servant. The children stay quiet, confused, half asleep in the moving carriage. For hours, the plan seems to work. The carriage moves steadily through the darkness, but the journey is slow, too slow. Heavy carriages do not travel quickly. They lose precious time, time they cannot afford to lose. In the town of Varennes, disaster strikes. A local postmaster recognizes the king's face from a coin. He raises the alarm. Word spreads through the town in minutes. Armed townspeople block the road. The royal family cannot go any further. They are just hours away from safety, just hours away from loyal soldiers, but hours are enough. The family is caught, stopped, surrounded. Word travels back to Paris almost immediately. The king and queen are forced to return under heavy guard in total humiliation. Crowds line the roads on the way back, silent, staring, cold. No one cheers, no one waves. There is only heavy, dangerous silence. This failed escape changes everything. Before, some people still saw the king as misguided but forgivable. Now many see him as a traitor, someone who tried to abandon his own country. And Marie Antoinette, already hated, becomes even more of a target. Revolutionaries now speak openly about ending the monarchy completely, not just limiting the king's power. Removing it, erasing it. The gap between the royal family and the people can no longer be closed. Then the trial began. By 1792, the monarchy is formally abolished. France is no longer a kingdom. It is now a republic. Louis XVI is arrested, tried, and found guilty of treason. In January 1793, he is executed by guillotine. Marie Antoinette is now a widow, a prisoner, a former queen with no power left. She is separated from her children. This separation breaks her more than anything before. Her young son is taken from her cell and placed elsewhere in the prison. She never sees him again as a free woman. Her health declines quickly. She grows pale, thin, and tired. Witnesses later say her hair turned completely white during this time. She is only in her 30s, but the stress of years has aged her deeply. In October 1793, her trial finally begins. It is not a fair trial, not even close. She faces false accusations, cruel accusations, some too terrible to fully repeat. The court has already decided her fate before the trial even starts. She defends herself with quiet dignity, even as the room turns against her. But dignity cannot save her. The verdict is guilty. The sentence is death. On the morning of October 16, 1793, she is taken from her cell. Her hands are tied behind her back just like a common criminal. She rides through the streets of Paris in an open cart, not a royal carriage. Crowds gather to watch. Some scream insults, some stay silent. She sits calmly, staring forward, showing almost no emotion. At the guillotine, she accidentally steps on the executioner's foot. Her final words, according to witnesses, are simple. "Pardon me, sir, I did not mean to." Even in her final moment, she remains polite, almost gentle. Then the blade falls. The queen who once wore towering hairstyles and sparkling diamonds is gone. The girl who once crossed a river stripped of everything familiar is gone. Then the queen was gone. So how does a 14-year-old girl become the most hated woman in Europe? She does not become it through her own choices, not entirely. She becomes it because a nation needed someone to blame. A nation drowning in debt, hunger, and anger needed a face for its pain. And a foreign-born queen, unfamiliar and misunderstood, became that face. She never asked for luxury to define her. She never asked to be a symbol. She was handed a role at 14 years old, and she played it imperfectly for the rest of her life. She was born into a role. She never got to choose her own story. That is the real tragedy, more than any diamond necklace, more than any rumor. Marie Antoinette was not simply cruel or simply innocent. She was human. A human placed inside a story much bigger than herself. A story written by kings, by revolutions, by centuries of anger finally breaking free. Sometimes people don't fall because of what they did. They fall because of what everyone needed them to be.